It's time for the Northwoods Cooking Show. Starring Uncle Roy and Miss Callie, the troublemaking dog.
Hello and welcome to the Northwoods Cooking Show. I'm your host, Uncle Roy, and today we're going to be making some old-fashioned cookies. We're going to dig in and go back to the old recipes that were my grandmother's favorites back when we were little kids. So today we're going to take first and make old-fashioned oatmeal scotchies. These are so good. Oh my God, they're so good. I haven't had these in years, but they're just wonderful. It's an oatmeal cookie, and instead of putting in raisins, we put in butterscotch chips. And that gives it such a rich, overwhelmingly rich flavor. They're just wonderful. So to first off, let's start out with our butter. We're gonna have three quarter cups plus 3/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of butter. Anyway, I zapped them in the microwave for about 20 seconds just to soften them up to make beating much easier. If you had these at room temperature, it would be better yet, but most people don't keep butter at room temperature. So now we'll take and just mix this up for approximately 30 seconds until it gets nice and creamy. And then I have 2 eggs in warm water. But these weren't at room temperature either. So if you have them at room temperature, that's your best bet. But if you don't, you just put them in hot water. And this will let them sit for about 10 minutes. Okay, now to this we're going to be adding 3/4 cups of brown sugar. And I just happen to have the dark brown sugar. You can use the light brown sugar if you want to. It's just that the dark brown has a little bit more molasses in it than the light brown. And this is what gives it a little bit more of an old-fashioned flavor and look to it, because you have the darker brown sugar. So I have a 1/4 cup here. Half makes 3/4 cup. Now we let these go so you can dissolve those crystals. We want that sugar to dissolve so you get a nice, lighter, fluffier cookie. And you know, you don't get that crunch between your teeth. If you do, that's because your sugar isn't dissolved well enough. And then we just need a 1/2 cup of white sugar. Oh, that's the flour. Now if you want to, you can take and set your timer. If you want this to go at least 3 to 4 minutes so it gets light and fluffy. And halfway through you want to take it, turn it off and scrape the sides of the sides of your bowl so everything gets thoroughly enveloped. You want a really light and fluffy butter sugar mixture. So let me do that and then we'll be right back. Okay, then we'll put in our 2 eggs one at a time. Well, come on. You want to get that incorporated with the sugar and butter mixture first before we add another egg here. Now I took and scraped down and beated up my sugar and butter until I got nice and soft and fluffy. Now I do that about 3 or 4 different times. I would stop and scrape it down. So it takes a while to get that all incorporated so it's light and fluffy. And then we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And this is pure vanilla. I got this from Fox Barbecue out of Merlot, Wisconsin, or Merlot. I think it's pronounced Merlot. And they got a barbecue place, so that's why I got a lot of. He mailed me a bunch of samples and stuff. He gave me a bottle of this pure vanilla. Oh my God, is this ever good? Homemade pure vanilla. This is good. This is better than that Madagascar bourbon vanilla. Very expensive. I'm sure this is too. Boy, is this ever good though. Oh, you can see it's already getting really fluffy. And you want to scrape again. This is important when making your cookies, no matter what kind you make, to make sure that your butters and sugars are very light and fluffy and thoroughly blended in together, and get the bottom of the bowl, because there's that little kick in there. And that's what a lot of dry ingredients like to stick and not get mixed in with your other product. So it's a lot of scraping and remixing. You want everything to be thoroughly blended. Nothing worse than when you bite into a cookie like a big hunk of sugar in there, or a big hunk of soda or something, you know? Oh my God, I used to hate that. Okay, now for the dry ingredients. For this we need 1 1/2 cups of flour. Whoop. And again, I always tell you to take and measure off, because even the slightest excessive amount will dry out your cookies, your products, and whatever you're making. So you want to make this even. You can always add more, but you can't take it out. Oh, just take and scrape that off so we get an even amount. And put that in a bowl here first. I got a bowl here. So I want to blend these together. That was 1 1/2 cups of flour. Along with a teaspoon of baking soda. And if you haven't baked in a while, make sure you mix up your baking soda, because that top level is going to be stagnant if it sits there for a while. And of course, every year I should just throw it out and get a new one. I'm still good, I know that. And then we also need a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And the kosher salt, rather than iodized, is because it makes everything lighter, fluffier, and flakier. So that's always best. Use kosher in baking. Take a wire whisk and mix these in together so that they're thoroughly blended, so we get an even distribution of the salt and baking soda throughout the whole entire cookie, rather than just big chunks. We don't want that. Plus, the wire whisk helps to break up any lumps that's in there too, of your flour, etc. And then we can just put this right into our bowl. And then we'll just turn this on low. We only want to mix until it's blended. We don't want to overmix and activate that gluten, because then we're going to have really tough cookies. So just keep this on low and just wait for it to just about the flour to be done, and then we'll stop. Just about there. You can still see I got a little bit of flour, because now we're going to put in 3 cups of oatmeal and 1 cup of the butterscotch chips. And again, we'll just put this on extreme low. and mix this up. Now we could just probably do this by hand if you got a strong wooden spoon, because a spatula will break, but I got a heavy duty wooden handle on it because spongy plastic ones are going to just break because it's a heavy dough. So let me just mix this up and then we'll be right back. Okay, then we'll just take and scoop these onto our baking sheets, and I got my parchment paper lying on there. And you want these approximately 2 inches apart. Give room for expansion as they melt and shape and form into the cookie. I kind of like move this around just a little bit to get them more even. They get plenty of room to grow and expand. And then I'll just take and do an alternate row in between. That way I can get more cookies on here and make more use of the spacing of the baking tray. So then we're going to put these in a 350-degree oven, and these will go for approximately 8 to 10 minutes. And when they look slightly set, take them out and let them cool for a minute on the sheet, and then we can slide them off so that they somewhat set on the sheet for about a minute. Then you can slide them off and put them on your cooling racks to cool completely. If you take them off too soon, they're going to just fall apart on you. So you want to make sure you just let them sit for about a minute and then cool completely on the wire rack. So let me finish this off, and just stay with that second row like that. And then we can just take and go on with the final row. And we'll put these in the oven. And like I said, it'll go approximately 8 to 10 minutes. So I'm going to put this on the bottom rack first, and then when I get the second rack done, I can put that on the bottom and raise the bottom up to the top to finish off baking. And then we'll be back with our oatmeal scotchy cookies. Now these are the oatmeal scotchy cookies. Don't they look wonderful? Oh, and they taste great. Yummy. So these are very old-fashioned cookies that Grandma used to bake. Not mine. She couldn't bake at all. But now we can go on to our next recipe. Okay, now we can go on to our next old-fashioned cookie, and this one is Grandma's sugar cookies. Now, like I said before, my grandma was not a good cook. She only did a couple of things that were really, really good. This is one of her treats she always used to have. I remember going to her house all the time, and she had this old clay cookie jar on her counter, and she always had these sugar cookies and her oatmeal cookies. So we're going to do her sugar cookies, which I really like. They're not the best, but they are really good. I remember them as a special treat when we were kids. So this would be kind of fun to make. And for this, we're going to mix everything together. It's one of those everything gets poured together type of mixture. So I'm going to take and kind of separate the wet from the dry and do a little twist to it. So what we need to put in our mixer first is going to be a 3/4 cup of white sugar. And let's see, gonna be half. And 1/4. And along with 2/3 cup of vegetable oil. Okay. Along with 2 eggs. And then we'll just take and mix this up thoroughly until the sugar's mostly dissolved. And then now for the dry ingredients. In the separate mixing bowl, I'm going to put in 2 cups of flour. Along with a half teaspoon of kosher salt. And 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And again now, like with your soda, if you haven't used it in a while, you want to stir it up, because that top part that's been sitting there usually is inactive. So you can mix it all up like that, give it a little swirl to get the activation going. Then we'll just take and mix these dry ingredients together. That way we can break up the flour so we don't have any lumps. And then we'll get an even distribution of the baking powder and salt. And then we have 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Along with a teaspoon of lemon zest. Now when you zest your lemons, you want to do this over the bowl so that the zest goes directly into the bowl and not on your counter and then you pick it up and put it in the bowl. Don't do that, because then you lose a lot of the essential oils of the lemon zest itself. And we want to take and get as much of that oil's zest in there. That's what's going to give it a lot of flavor. So I'm just carefully zesting this, or planing it on to get the zest. And we have 1 teaspoon of lemon zest here. Okay, now we can just add our dry ingredients to this. And then we'll just mix this up on low, just until the flour is absorbed and incorporated, and then we'll stop. We don't want to activate that gluten. We don't want to have a tough cookie. And that's where a lot of people make mistakes of over mixing that, and then you have a real rubbery, tough cookie. As soon as it's just incorporated, you can just see little specks of white there. You can stop. And then I'll just scrape off the beaters. Now this is a rather moist dough. It's not a stiff sugar cookie dough, because these cookies do flatten out and get rather flat and wide. So you want to allow plenty of space in between the cookies when you bake these. You don't want to crowd these in, because they do spread out. So now I'll just take and scrape the sides of the bowl here to make sure I got all the ingredients together. It's almost like a stiff cake batter. It's a rather thinner dough, so you want to be careful, like I said, to make sure you have plenty of room on your cookie sheet. Now, your oven is at 400 degrees, and these are going to be baked for 8 to 10 minutes. And so we'll just take and plop these down. Like I said, you want to have plenty of room in between. And then we're going to take the bottom of a glass and dip that in sugar. And then we'll take and press that onto the top of our cookie dough. And then we'll take and place an almond in the center of each cookie. So let me just finish this off, and we'll be right back. Okay, now you can see they're a rather smooth, flatter out cookie. These are going to puff up when they bake. And then you just place an almond in the center, and I already took the glass and pressed down into the bowl of sugar and top off each cookie like that so they all get covered with sugar, and then an almond in the center. Now these go into a 400-degree oven for approximately 8 to 10 minutes. And I'll continue baking these, and then we'll be right back. All right. Now these are Grandma's sugar cookies. Oh God, the memories came flying back. I remember her making these all the time we were kids. She always had a cookie jar full of these. These are wonderful, wonderful old-fashioned sugar cookie. Easy to make. Okay, now we can go on to our third recipe, our old-fashioned cookie episode here. We're going to be making some old-fashioned ginger snaps. Now with this one, we're going to be using half butter flavored shortening and half butter. I'm getting confused here. I'm so confused right now. Since we're going to be using butter, if you use all butter, I'm trying to get this straight here now. If you use all butter, you have to chill the dough for at least an hour. If you don't, when you bake your cookies, they're going to spread out and get real thin. If you use half butter and half shortening, we're going to have that crispiness of the shortening on the outside and the softness of the butter on the inside of the cookie. So this makes a wonderful cookie. Now I'm going to take my shortening and just heat it up for 30 seconds. I just pulled it out of the refrigerator. And then I'm going to have a half cup of shortening. And I'm using, to make it even more flavorful, I'm going to be using the butter flavored Crisco. So this will give it a nice buttery flavor too without having all the butter, so we don't get that spread out effect. So I just need a half cup of the butter flavored Crisco. And I do this with most of my cookies anyway. Try to use half butter and half shortening. And if you can get the butter flavored Crisco, even better, because you're going to have more buttery flavor to it. But you just get that combination of half shortening and half butter, gives it your cookies a softer inside with a crispier outside. Okay, now, then this will call for a cup of white sugar. We're going to put molasses in it later, so we don't need to have brown sugar in it. I can just level this off on the inside of my container. And then I'm just going to whip this up until it's light and fluffy. Now, if you need to set your timer, go ahead. We want to do this for at least 3 to 4 minutes. We want it really light and fluffy and get those sugar crystals dissolved. And halfway through, take and scrape down the bowl. Make sure you get the bottom kick of the bowl here so that you get all ingredients mixed together, and continue fluffing it up for another, for a full 3 to 4 minutes altogether. And then we'll be right back. Okay, then we're going to be putting in 1 egg and 1/4 cup of molasses. Now take and make sure to spray your little cup with cooking spray, and that helps to keep the molasses from sticking to your cup, and it just pours out like water. Really, really smooth and nice. It's just easy to get all of it out then. Ooh, 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 ooh. There you go. It just slides right out then. Okay. And then we need 1 egg. And try to have your eggs and butter at room temperature. That's why I had to put my butter in the microwave. I didn't have it at room temperature. And my egg, I just stuck it in the water just to heat it up a little bit. So now for my dry ingredients, I need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And again, make sure you level these off. We don't want to have dried out cookies. That's what makes it very hard and dry, is if you have too much flour. Even a teaspoon, I always say, even a teaspoon will take and dry out your cookie. So we have 2 cups of flour. And then our spices, we need 1 teaspoon each of cinnamon. Get down to the bottom. Oh, there's plenty in there. Put that on my list. And a teaspoon of ground ginger. A half teaspoon of ground cloves. Down there, that one too. A teaspoon of salt. Goes in there. And 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And again, I always say that too, that if you haven't used your sodas or baking powders in a while, just stir it up. Because that top layer, if it's been sitting on your shelf for quite a while, is deactivated. So you want to make sure you've got a nice activation of all your ingredients. And then we just take and mix this up. And then we can just put this right into our bowl. And you can mix by hand with a wooden spoon, or put it on low. And watch it carefully, because as soon as that flour envelops with everything, you want to stop. And you can just finish it off by hand then. So I got the oven heating at 350, and we're just going to bake these off for 8 to 10 minutes. Now I got a little bowl here of just white granulated sugar on the side, and I'm just going to take my little baller, cookie scooper, scoop it out, roll these into balls, and we'll just roll these into sugar. Very simple and easy to do. And when we put these on our cookie sheet, to stagger them in rows, they need a little room to spread out on, not a whole lot. About 1.5 inches to 2 inches is perfect. So when I get done with this, I'll just put these in the oven at 350 for 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll be right back. Okay, now these are our our ginger snap cookies, old-fashioned ginger snaps. Now remember, when you take those out of the oven, to let them sit on the hot cookie sheet and cool on the sheet for at least a minute. They need to set. This is a soft cookie when it comes out, so if you spatula it and put it away on the cooling rack right away, it's going to break in half in lots of pieces. So let it sit on your cookie sheet for at least a minute, then transfer onto the rack like this to cool. And then you have your perfect little cookie. And then these, as an example of all of our cookies, we have here the oatmeal Scotchies with butterscotch chips, grandma sugar cookies with the almond center, and then our ginger snap cookies. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode on our old-fashioned cookies, oatmeal Scotchies, grandma sugar cookies with the almond center, and the molasses or ginger snaps. I want to say molasses crinkles, but they're ginger snaps, not the crinkles. Crinkles are more like the chocolate crinkles you see at Christmas time that are powdered sugary. Anyway, these are our old-fashioned cookies, so I hope you enjoyed making these today. So from the Northwoods Cooking Show, I like to say, eat healthy, be safe, and spread the sunshine. Bye-bye!